Another one of these nice seagulls, this time with a really nice figure on the back. Look at those two knots that look like eyes. It's really nice. This is one of the originals with the blonde wild cherry back and cedar top. Second one I've had in the last few days. Really fun to play. But what I wanted to talk about for this video is a lot of people sometimes think, because I'm all about budget guitars, setting up cheaper instruments or mid-range instruments, getting a bargain, making things playable for a little bit of money, as a lot of YouTubers are, that I have no interest in vintage instruments. That couldn't be further from the truth. I don't get as many vintage instruments in. I'm not of the caliber of a Ted Woodford or some of the other luthiers on YouTube. I do get some, and I have a couple that I own: Martin, Taylor, a couple of Alvarez Yaris, vintage Yamaha from the 80s, that kind of thing. So I am very interested, and one resource that I found fun and helpful, and I'm sure some of you are familiar, is the videos posted by 5 Watt World. I forget the name of the presenter on there, but a very, very forthright, thorough presentations of vintage instruments, usually American, but some import as well. And I, occasionally binge a few of those. It just sort of like, for the most part, it gives me information that I've already read about and heard about before, but often provides a little detail that's new to me. And also, they do a really good job with the images that they show on those videos. So if you're interested in, 50s Telecasters, Stratocasters, early Les Pauls, SGs, 335s, the history of companies like Washburn, Gretsch, Guild, even some of the early days of the Japanese makers like Ibanez. There's so many great videos on there that incorporate lots of really great photos of those instruments with permissions from the players or the luthiers or the museums that house those instruments. So that's a great resource, and always something that I'm learning about and reading about. So the fact that I don't have lots of Martin, Taylor, even vintage Fender and Gibson videos doesn't mean that I don't have an interest in vintage instruments, or that I don't know or care to know about those things. I think it's a wonderful world. As I said in my last video, I studied the art of violin making dating back to the 15th, 16th century. I've done a video on it, and I'm really interested in the history of lutherie of all stringed instruments. I find it very fascinating, including the more modern developments of last century for acoustic and electric guitars. And it's always a thrill for me to read or watch a video that includes some history on those models, those makers, those developments, those trends. So I just wanted to make that clear, because a couple of people said, "Oh, you're just the budget guy." It's not true. It just happens that guitars of this ilk here, the $600, $700, $800 guitars, are mostly what I work on and sell. But occasionally I come across some nicer stuff and get some vintage instruments in my hands here and there. And of course, if I do, I will make a video on them. So yeah, I have as much of a passion about that as I do the cheaper instruments. However, I've just found a niche on YouTube for talking about instruments you can get your hands on within a working class budget, and with a little work turn into reasonable guitars, maybe including brands and models that most people don't know about. And for the most part, most people seem fairly grateful to receive that information, although I'm not alone. There are other channels doing similar things in these realms. Occasionally I get the snobs, the cork sniffers, the purists that show up in the comments and you know, sort of show nothing but disdain for anything that's foreign made or not the big four manufacturers or distributors. So, but you know, that's always going to happen. You're always going to have those divides on instrument channels and with groups of people. So as long as it's civil, I entertain all opinions and thoughts around the manufacture of instruments. But I very much admire and hope to find more of instruments of that ilk. It's getting harder, folks. I mean, everybody wants a 52 tally, one of the blackguards. You know, everybody wants, you know, the early 335s, you know, even the Esquires, the broadcasters, you know, the early Gibson stuff. We all want those, and there's only a finite amount available, and certainly a lot of it's out of most of our price ranges. So as they become more collectible, more desirable, they become gobbled up by those who have means and therefore are less of an option for the working musician, particularly the semi or non-professional type. So yeah, that's just the way it is. I come across stuff like this all the time, and the higher vintagey stuff not so much, but I love it all, and always happy to learn more about any era or any maker. They're all, to me, I have a passion for all of it. So I just want to make that clear. And I love hearing your stories too about the stuff you get hold of and how your experiences are. So keep those coming. All right, folks, see you on the next one.